looking today at how we design learning for students. So in the last video, we looked at the questions that are really important to guide our thoughts around what distance learning is. So the first question being, what do my students need to learn now? Second question being, what is the best way to get them there? And third question is around, how do I know when they got there? The first one really is, again, informed by teachers' understanding of curriculum for the year groups, the ages that the students are in their class. And the secondly, it's informed by sort of formative assessment. So I know what my students need to achieve over the course of the year, and this is where Sam is on that progression to getting to where he needs to be. That's what do they need to learn next. That'll identify Sam's next steps. The question around, once I know what his next steps are, it's a question of designing the learning that really makes sense for Sam. But when we look at distant learning and online learning, I just want to sort of make sure that we don't step into a place where the mode of delivery then determines the type of activity we do. So for example, in a classroom, the mode of delivery often is the classroom teacher telling students what they need to learn. But if they only design learning around text, then a lot of students won't engage in that learning very well. So the same thing happens with online learning. What we don't want to do is to get into a place where just because the platform that the learning is being delivered on is technology based or internet based or device based, that all of the types of learning that happens is based around technology or internet. We'll be in this crazy place where a lot of parents who, ironically, the delivery of learning is on, say, an iPad, for example. What we don't want to do is to have the student doing all of their learning on an iPad. We want to make sure that we're engaging them in many different modes. So consider 4 modes. I would say there's a physical mode of learning, there's an oral mode of learning, there's a virtual mode of learning, and there's also a text mode of learning. So when we break those 4 modes up, in the oral space, if you're going to have the students engage in learning, maybe the receiving learning through oral is that the teacher does put together a script, puts together some learning around a new concept that they need to understand, and the teacher might record themselves, or they might find something that's already recorded and deliver that through the learning platform to explain the concept that the student needs to learn. And then, of course, use the student to give some oral feedback around what their understanding is, or to argue a point. But they can record that and then send it back to the teacher to show their understanding, or post it on a platform like Seesaw, where the students can then share their understandings together and comment on each other's learning. And also use the oral factor as far as using an oral mode, so that the students can communicate together and build that relationship with the teacher and with other classmates. So look at that two-way communication and tools that enable you to do that. It could be like Google Meet or Zoom. The next is sort of a physical space, and I quite like this when we think about online learning. The delivery of concepts around measurement, for example, a really good way to have a student show their understanding of measurement is to give them tasks that involve them doing stuff. So think about, what can you bake, what can you make, how can you build a scaled vehicle out of Lego or whatever that might be. But have the students actually build something, and physically you could even have them break something. Of course, you want to make sure that the parents on board on that one and they're not breaking the fridge or anything silly like that, but have them to pull something apart to show what works on the inside and how things operate. But in the senior years, you could easily have physics done, having the students show their understanding of what friction is by building a video that shows the concept of friction and how heat is generated, for example. But you can also do that with the juniors in different ways. There's also a text base, and legitimately, students can engage in text. Have the students read something, have them write something, and have them even online chatting now with each other to show their understanding, or to unpack concepts with the students, with other students, and with the teacher. And of course, there is the virtual side of things. So building presentations or videos, creating. So there's a whole sense of content creation. So using technology to show your understanding of something. As a teacher, you might present something so the students can understand a concept through sort of little video applets, or using online tools such as Mathletics for the students to understand, to build an understanding of concepts that are being learned. You can use technology for communication together as well, and of course, not to forget coding. So there's plenty of tools out there. So really, when we think about the design of learning, of course, the delivery mechanism for the learning is now going to be online. But my sort of thoughts would be, how do you use the technology to be the delivery mode, but not necessarily the learning mode? So consider physical design for learning, like using physical activity, using oral activity, using text activities, and using the virtual activities as well. So getting a balance of those things to learn concepts, I think, would be in a good space. My big warning really around this whole thing is to not let the delivery mode to dictate the only mode of learning that the students have. That's it for now. All the best for your journey, and we'll talk again soon. Bye.